going to basically just ask me questions, and I'm going to answer them. So you're going to get the truth right out of me, right from the get go.
Awesome. For those that don't know, hi everybody. I am actually the producer for the Racing Realtor Takes podcast. Also
He makes the
creative,
magic happen.
editing, you name it. Other than being sexy Gabe, I'm trying to hold it down. But it's an honor and a privilege to be here with you, man. Thank you so much. So glad you decided to take a little time to introduce the people to you. Because this is going to be looks like more of a guest-based show. We're going to be bringing people on, highlighting them, spotlighting them, what they do for their community, their careers, how they got to where they are in life, any advice for the market, for people personally.
Absolutely.
I love that. And so it's time to take a little time and maybe get to know you.
Right. So, and yes, and that's basically my intentions for this podcast is basically I want to get to know that the people that work in the real estate community, whether it's roofing, it's remodeling, I've got title companies, I've got lenders, I've got home inspectors, everybody. It takes so many people to actually make that transaction work that you've got to build those relationships, right? And that's the one thing that I've built my entire business on is just relationships. So I want to basically give back and show people and give people that knowledge that there's a lot of humble people in this community that can help you. And so I want to showcase those people on the show, and that way you get to know them and get to know the people that I work with every day.
I love that. I love that. So as you can see right above your head, and as you are known as the Racing Realtor, why? Let's start there. Why the Racing Realtor? Are you in a hurry to do deals?
No, absolutely not. Like that's one thing that I take my time. But the name actually came from a client of mine. Like the client was like, kind of just talking like I do with everybody. And they're like, "What do you do?" And I was like, I drag race. Like I love to drag race. It's part of my passion. I It's what I've done for a long, long time. I've got a Honda S2000 that I drag race in Florida, Maryland, Oklahoma, pretty much wherever. And so that client was like, "Why don't you go by the Racing Realtor?" And this was like one of my very first clients that I had. So I just ran with it. I contacted a company, and I was like, "Hey, this is what I want. Like, I need you to combine drag racing and real estate together, and this is the name of it." And they're like, "What?" And like it took them, I want to say it probably took them about 2 weeks to finally give me something that I liked, and it just stuck. And I've ran with it, and now I can walk into almost any real estate event, and people are like, "Hey, you're the Racing Realtor, right?" It's not like, "Oh, you're Gabe." No, it's you're the Racing Realtor. That's how people know me, and I've branded myself that in this community and throughout. I mean, everywhere. That's what people know me by. I mean, it's even on the car. So, yeah,
It is on the car, and it's a great brand. My question to you is, when can we see you race? And let's talk a little bit more about that. What made you fall? Because, to the average person, it's crazy. Why would you get in a car that goes so fast that you literally could die in? And then for those of us that are kind of fans but don't know that much about the inside of it, it's so costly. Like there's nothing cheap about a race car, right? So
no, it's really not. But I personally, I love it. I love seeing what the car can do. Right. So I have someone that drives it, and that's what I like. People ask me all the time, "Why don't you drive it yourself?" And I'm like, "Man, that's not my passion. My passion is I want to put it together, help figure it out, and say, here," right? Because everybody has a talent. My talent is not driving. That's not the God-given gift that I got. Mine was gift of gab. So, but that's just part of it. So that's something that I love, that I enjoy. Racing is just in my blood. I mean, I've been on Honda tuning cover. I was on the very last feature magazine on Honda tuning, myself and two other S2000s. So, I mean, there's been features that I've done online, articles. It's just part of me. Like the drag racing is just part of me. I mean, I'm here in Oklahoma. I go to Florida. I love Florida. Maryland, there's a big event in Maryland that I love to go to. So yeah, I mean, I pretty much will go anywhere.
shout out to your Florida folks. I can't wait to go to Florida again. I love Florida. It's where a
Dude,
lot of Okies end up when
anytime.
we retire.
Let's go. Let's go. We'll go see all my sponsors down there. So
See, I got one of my best buds is in Savannah, and he's like, "Man, just move to Georgia, and we'll go vacation in Florida." It's easy. It's like Oklahoma, Texas, which
right.
fair. Um, so tell us about like you absolutely you love it. I get that, right? You have the thing that you love to do in racing, and it's something that you've had success in and you're known because you've done a good enough job. So like take us to the first time. Was it Oklahoma? Was it Florida? How did because you had to have gone somewhere and seen racing, right?
So one of my good friends that I've been friends with since since probably 96, 97, right? Started off like in his garage, and we just kind of bonded, and we started doing stuff together. I'd help him get clients and sell parts, and he was building race cars for people, and it's crazy. We just kind of came up together, and I started building my race car in 2009, and then I sent it to Florida back in 2011, and basically from 2011, that company just took it and just ran with it, and we set world records with it. So it's just been a huge journey, long journey. I love taking the car to events because the car pulls up to the line and it's like the whole crowd just stands up and just erupts, right? Because they're like, and this is a little Honda S2000, little four banger, right? Like it's crazy. It's crazy what it does. So yeah, I just love it. Truly love it.
And for those people that are wondering, and because I've seen the car, we'll put some pictures of it up. It's got the parachute in the back,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
That's so cool. Like for somebody who's not well known in the business or knows a lot about your business, just the kind of fact that a car's going so fast, you have to deploy a parachute because there's not enough braking to stop it. That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
it's insane. It really is. I mean, a quarter mile, and then it depends on what track you're at. You don't have that much time to stop, So you're doing 170 miles an hour in a quarter mile. You've got to stop. You've got to have something that says that hold up. So yeah, you got to have that. And really, the rules, you got to have it once you hit 150 miles an hour.
That's cool. So it kind of comes down to who's going to hit 150 first and who can control the speed
Yep.
of 150.
You got to be able to control it and stop it and all that good stuff.
That's very cool. And then do you have family that races or
Nope.
anybody else? No,
Nope.
you and
Just
your folks?
basically me and my boys in Florida. I mean, I've got a lot of people down there that support me, and it's great. I go down there, I can take the car down there. The different shops will help put the car together, help get it ready. Whatever I need, there's a lot of support in Florida. So
Heck yeah. And that's how you became the racing realtor.
yep.
And kind of getting a little bit into the real estate end of things. Uh, just to be honest, I know for a fact, I've seen a lot of people, friends of mine, grew up on the poor side and they were able to get into some kind of sales and mainly real estate. And I think a lot of it is what you learn so much more than as we both have sold cars in the past.
Yep.
We come from a background of selling
Came
cars.
from the car business.
But I don't know too many people that end up wealthy or very comfortable unless you're not buying your own lot, even
Right.
managers. Whereas with real estate, you can be just a good agent, but because of your understanding of the market and, invest your money into land or homes or whatever the case may be, they end up doing better. They end up ending up their family and their kids end up being able to go to better colleges and stuff like that because they made the right moves and worked hard in this industry that's real estate. I find real estate and finance are the only two businesses that I find that, us working schlubs can get into and understand kind of the rules of that game and literally change our lives and help our communities. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree? And have you seen it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much into real estate. I mean, everything, and I'm not a politic person, but there's so much in real estate that affects the economy. It affects the communities that you're in. I mean, everything that real estate does, it's a huge part of our market, huge part of everyday life. I mean, you got companies that move here, you got people that move from California, from New York, wherever, that are paying these high, ridiculous rates or prices for a home. You can come to Oklahoma and pay a quarter of the amount, right? Like huge difference. So it's like, can you have a little bit maybe better life here in Oklahoma on the same amount and be able to stretch that dollar, right? So I think that that's a big part of it is just getting into real estate. You can dive in so deep from community to your neighborhoods. It doesn't matter. Like there's so many doors that are opened. I mean, I've made friends that are investors that are title companies, even from the car business. I've sold a lot of people cars, and they've turned around and followed me to real estate, and now I'm like basically part of their family. I've sold daughters' homes and moms' homes and whatnot. So I think that that's a big part of myself is that I came from nothing. I had nothing. I've been broke, poor, and living paycheck to paycheck, and ramen noodles was my thing. Like that's all you could afford. So I think it's being humble and getting that work ethic.
I can show you how to get some steaks from Walmart, but we'll talk about that off. Kidding, kidding, kidding. You get steaks anywhere, but they have a good cut for low prices at
Right,
Walmart.
right.
Sorry, that was a side note. So, but you do know what it is. Cool thing. Don't have to go too deep into it, but people may not know you did not necessarily grow up in the United States. You are a United States citizen.
Correct.
You're one of the few people who has dual citizenship. Is that correct?
Yes, I have dual citizenship. I was born and raised in Panama, the country. My dad was in the military for 20 some odd plus years in the U.S. Air Force. I was born in Panama. We moved to Wyoming, and then he moved back to Panama. And then after they were giving Panama the base back to the citizens, back to Panama, the country. The military moved out, and so my dad retired here at Tinker, and that's how ended up here. So I actually have dual citizenship. My mom um, had me in a Panamanian hospital, and so I have a birth of abroad. I don't have a birth certificate.
That's very cool. Also, the way things come full circle, you're the racing realtor. You were born in Panama. And Van Halen has a song called Panama about a race car. True story. Do you see how it all comes together?
Facts.
And I bet everybody in Van Halen lives in a house. What? Sorry, being crazy there. But I think that's very cool, man. A very cool side note, just interesting. And I think it's important because as the demographics of a place like Oklahoma change and all of America changes, it's important that people know there's somebody like you out there who's dealt with different kinds of people from different parts of the world and understands that needs are different. Some people, one thing I thought was interesting that Rob Clennon, that was the guest, said he was like, things are changing. Like people are looking at maybe buying, some property and 2 and 3 families,
Right.
living in that, maybe building onto that and that kind of thing. And then I know talking to you off there, you talk to me a lot, and it seems like I've heard 2 or 3 stories of folks you're working with right now that are remodeling or expanding or that kind of thing, more so than just buying new homes. Can you talk a little bit about, is that a change you've seen specifically, or is that just kind of how it's going? Or
I think more and more people are starting to put more money into the remodeling side because one, either they can live in it and it's quote unquote a new house to them once they remodel it, or they can put, say they put 20,000 into it, but they gain value of 50,000, right? So I mean, your $30,000 equity that either you can, you know, sell the house, cash out on it, and take it, or possibly sell the house and buy something a little bit bigger and use that equity to roll over to that newer house, right? So I think that that's a big portion that's happening now. Even during COVID, more and more people were spending money just remodeling their house, right? Because everybody was stuck at home. So that's one of the big things that I mean, you look at Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those, they had astronomical sales during COVID. Why? Because everybody was at home. The honeydews had to get done because you were staring at it, and the wife's like, "Hey, y- we still need that door fixed. Like, paint the walls. Like,
I know
that's a
you'd
big
hate
portion
to,
of it."
miss those reruns of the third rerun of Barney Miller today.
Right.
But yeah, those windows, yeah,
You got to get done.
I can see daylight coming through the door. Let's fix that frame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a big part of it. Is just more people are spending money and taking the time to take care of the home. I mean, and it shows right now. The ones that are remodeled, you're getting a lot more money per square foot than if you didn't touch it, you know? So I think that makes a big difference.
Yes. Speaking of that, Oklahoma, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I was a realtor or a real estate agent, it's interesting because I feel like we're kind of a market in flux. I recently was in Sherman, Denison, and I almost feel like there's a similar vibe in that there's a lot of growth, but there's also with that growth comes wide economic, there are houses that are selling for 84 and 85 and houses that are selling for 840 and 850 at the same time. And you have both markets, not maybe extremely, but very active. And Oklahoma is one of the few places I think where that's going on. And I'm talking within a 5 to 10 mile radius.
It is. I mean, there's the good thing about Oklahoma is that our market is still very active. It's not slowing down, and I think it's the fact that more and more people are moving to Oklahoma. They're relocating to Oklahoma. I have a lady that's actually moving down from North Dakota. It doesn't matter. It's just Oklahoma is a good spot where you can buy property and buy an investment that's going to gain equity pretty quickly. I mean, it's 1 to 3% roughly every year that your home increases in value, as long as you're taking care of it and blah 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 and all that good stuff. But that's a huge amount, for people, and that's an easy way to have that liquidity that's sitting there if you ever need it. So
That's very cool. So you handle both, right? You handle the low end, not necessarily but hey, I want to start at home. You know what I mean? I've been renting and I love my condo, but I understand it's just wise to get my own home at this point. It's people that are in their 30s, maybe. It's kind of different, I found. And if you want to talk a little bit about this, is that there's such an apartment condo market. You go to Dallas even, and I'm talking $1,400-$1,500 a month for a 1,200 square foot, a nice, more like an 800-900 square foot apartment because of where you're at and located, and them trying to bring maybe that New York or downtown LA vibe to Oklahoma. But then you turn around and you're in your early to mid 30s, and you're like, oh wow, if I get a 30-year mortgage, I'm going to be in my late 60s before I paid this off.
Yep. But there's tricks to paying that off too. Early.
Okay, hit me with that. So noticing that and noticing, I think probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but the average home buyer's age has gone up a little bit.
Yes, it actually has. It has increased, and I think that that's more to our society. Just more and more people are trying to put cash away, right? And the fact that our quote unquote first time home has now increased. I mean, you're almost 250, 260 for your median home, where before COVID, you were 150. So that's a huge difference. And the problem here in Oklahoma is that our medium income is $52,000. Well, that doesn't buy the 250 house, right?
Correct.
So I think that's a big factor in it. But I think it's now people are having to put more money in their pocket and hold it until they can purchase, right? It's not that you can't buy a home with no money out of pocket. It's just getting harder and harder, but it's also the values have increased so much here in Oklahoma that first time home buyers is struggling.
Right, makes sense. What's the resale market on 3-stripe Adidas?
Not very good. Not very good. Not very good.
You wouldn't know because you never sell yours. For those of you that don't know, my man probably has. We're gonna have to do a show on this. Like, we're gonna have to pull them all out and display them.
Right.
My man probably.
We're gonna need a bigger room.
At least, yeah, than the studio. We're gonna have to go to your closet and pull. But at least one full closet. I know you sent me that one picture. Like, there's a you almost can't get into the. I'm like, there are shoes in the back you probably can't even see.
I have more shoe room than I do for clothes. That's just saying.
As you should, because I mean, plus I've never seen my man not in a t-shirt. I mean, 40 degrees out, it's a heavy coat, or 4 degrees out, it's a heavy coat and a t-shirt. Maybe a hoodie. Have I seen you in a hoodie?
It's a hoodie.
Maybe a hoodie. Yes.
I'll probably do a hoodie, but I have I don't even know what type of material it is, but just a little zip up jacket. But if it's not that, it's a hoodie. And it still has my logo on it. It doesn't matter, and price range as far as what I'm selling, you get me, right? Like you're not getting the realtor that's going to show up in a suit. Like one, I don't know how to tie a tie. So if I had to wear it, it's probably going to be a clip on, right? But you're probably just not going to get it because it's not me. Like it, I don't feel comfortable in it, right? And I'm a true believer that you have to be confident in what you're doing, right? I'm not confident in a suit. Like I don't feel comfortable. I'm out. I feel confident in a t-shirt and jeans and my Adidas. You would feel better with me being confident like that than me showing up in a suit and being like, right? Like you're gonna squirm, right? You can tell the aura of someone if they're not comfortable, if they're not feeling and they don't have a good vibe. That's not me. I can't do suits. You're not gonna see me in a suit.
Well, and that's not everybody wears a suit, but everybody wears a t-shirt.
Yep.
Let's just be honest. Whether I go to work in one or I don't, I can't wait to get into my. And if I'm working around the house and you work, that's your whole point. That's what you do, right?
Yep.
So, but that's the thing that I really like is that you don't ever come off that way. Plus, man, like I understand that looking slick is a big part of the real estate game for a lot of folks, but it's also what intimidates. Like me, when I have car problems, like I'm so dumb when it comes to cars. I hate it because those dudes look at me like I'm so dumb, you know. And I'm
Right.
like, I could do other things, but
Mhm.
when it comes to that, I don't. I could. I mean, I can check my fluids. I can
Right.
change tires, but other than that, I could be taken for where they're like it's $4,000, and I have no idea whether they're just naming numbers or if
Right.
that's legit.
Whatever.
So that intimidation factor is there, and it keeps people away a lot of times, and especially something as hard as buying a house. It's not an easy thing to
Right.
do. It is a process, harder than anything else that you might transact if you're not in business. And the fact that somebody like you understands that, tries to make it easy for the folks, that's important, I think. And you're like, look, man, I'm a working human just like you. I do good with what I do, and I hope you do good with what you do, but I'm not going to be somebody that I'm not or put on a front to try to impress you. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to build a long-term relationship,
Right.
which is something you talk a lot about for people that don't
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
People may not know you sponsor a local baseball team, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
You help so many local businesses. That's how I met you as you were supporting a friend's local business. And in the real estate community, when you get to looking, does a lot of that. A lot of the local high school and junior high and grade school teams and stuff. Tell us about that role in the community, how you feel, what you look for, that kind of stuff.
Like I have kids. I've got two daughters, a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old.
I'm so sorry.
Like it's crazy. The insurance bill is not fun. So, but it's one of those things. I feel like, if I can give back, right, and I can help these kids because it's not cheap, right? Like the parents are always out money for something, right? You've got a baseball trip and you've got to go to Arkansas. Well, you're talking gas, hotel, food, whatever. So if I can help with anything that, in turn is gonna help them some, but like hats, right? Like baseball hats get sweaty, dirty. They want to change them and they want to get new ones. I don't mind helping, and maybe I can help do that for a team or whatever. And it just helps build that relationship, right? Like it's something that's good for the kids, it's good for the parents, but it also builds and shows that I'm not just out here just being like, oh, hey, I want to buy your house and just sell. That's not it. Like I want to build that relationship, and that's what I've done. And that's how I've built my entire business, is building the relationship. The networking that I have has grown, and that's how I get my business. So I think that that's a huge part.
And speaking a little more to that, uh, you do a lot of remodeling. People may not know because you're the racing realtor, and that's a very popular brand, and you're a popular dude in that way. But you also do remodeling and help people. To me, that's awesome in that, okay, if my remodeler is also my realtor, and my realtor is my remodeler, you can come in and go, hey, man, if you spend 2 or 3,000 here, right now, that's hot. That open kitchen floor, whatever, you
Right.
know what I mean, is hot. And we could take this wall out, you know what I mean, and put some flooring in, for whatever, and you're going to get this much, or you might love your home more, but then it's up to you, and I can help you either
Right.
way. You can talk to folks about that. Or if I'm looking for a house and I'm like, oh man, I can fix that frame. You're like, meh, that's a foundation issue, right?
Right.
Like, about that stuff.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's a big part of it, especially for new home buyers, right? You're not going to buy the $1 million house or your forever home, right? You're buying something that maybe it needs a little TLC. Well, I can hopefully give you some advice and be like, hey, those are things that, cosmetically you can change or you can do. And I've even had people that do call me and they're like, hey, Gabe, I want to sell this house. How much is it worth if we don't touch it? Right. But how much is it worth if we put X amount, and then what would it be worth, right? So I can give them both of those options and help them from day one, right? Through the whole process. Let's remodel it, get it done. Once it's remodeled, we put it on the market and sell it. So I think it's a little bit better and smoother transaction. And I'm there to help them with that, right? Like it's not like, oh, hey, I remodeled it and then you have to find another realtor to come sell it. Well, if I can hopefully advise you of how to do it or whatnot. Maybe it's going to help you sell it also, right?
Right.
Not just, oh, this is what looks good or whatever. I'm in the market every single day. So I see the trends, I see what people are looking for or what they want. So I think that that gives me a little bit more of an edge in this market.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were showing me a bit of a horror story. You showed me a couple of horror stories. I'm like, oh my gosh. You're like, yeah, and we go and fix that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that looks awful. Like if that was my home, I'd be losing my mind.
Yep.
So that's awesome. I wanted to ask you a couple things. Um, Building a new stadium, just and this is like kind of your professional thoughts, right? Like theory, ideas, nothing hardcore, but we're building, as you know, the sales tax. If you don't know, in Oklahoma City area, a new sales tax just passed. I think 1 cent on the dollar or something, and we're building a giant new stadium. My issue with that is we just built the Chesapeake Center not 10 years ago, if
Don't even
maybe.
get me lying,
It,
but it's pretty new. I mean,
it's
we
pretty
still
new,
have the Cox Convention Center, right?
right?
And now we have Paycom. Is it Paycom or
Yeah.
Ford?
Now it
Whatever it
was
is.
Chesapeake, now it's Paycom. You're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
I
You're
think
right.
now it's Paycom Center. So I'm curious to see who puts their name on this next big thing.
Which is what have they decided? I think
I don't know.
Crossroads Mall is where they wanted to build it. But I was talking to somebody about the Wranglers. Did you hear about the Oklahoma City Wranglers?
No.
They were a semi-pro football team coming in, and I remember, I think I was living in the Dallas area, and it was like, Wranglers coming soon, the OKC Wranglers,
Huh.
and they were supposed to be taking over the Heritage Park Mall area and doing like indoor
Right.
football, and it ended up being a big scam. Like the dude I was talking to was like, dude, it was an entire big scam. Like the FBI is looking for the guy that came in. And I was like, it had to be at least $1 million campaign because I saw it all over, in other states. And he was like, yeah, it was a big deal and they got duped.
Oh
So
wow.
I have to look more into that. But regardless of that, that's going to be an interesting rabbit hole. However, and I thought maybe you might know, but
No.
what do you think about how the new uh, stadium is going to affect the real estate market? How do you feel right now in the current situation in Bricktown? And I've heard that they are doing some heavy lifting to get some people back into Bricktown. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, anytime that another big franchise, something like that, comes into our market, that just brings more jobs, right? Brings more jobs, brings more people here, and those people tend to buy houses, right? So it's going to spur the economy a little bit more here in Oklahoma City, which is good. But it's where are they going to put it? That's the thing. It's like,
Yeah, how does that affect? So how does that affect real estate? Meaning, okay, I live, where I live or whatever the case, right? Like say 50th and Meridian, for lack of it. You know what I mean? We both know that
right.
area, right?
So
And there's houses in that area that are, well, I would call them uh the top end of the low, right? Like there's clearly that
right.
next level. They're not that next level, but they're very nice for, your 80,000 airs. You know what I mean? If you're an 80,000 air, this is a nice 2-story or 3-bedroom house with a beautiful little, quarter acre or 8-acre backyard. Good, right? Like no
Right.
shame. Like if I had that, I'd be ecstatic. I'm in a condo and after hanging out with you and so dumb. Which I want to ask you about buying condos too in a
Right.
second. But anyway, so if they put the stadium, say 2 miles from my house, does my property value decrease? Does it increase? What happens?
It would increase, um, but the thing about it is you've got to find a location that they can put it, right? So say if they put in, just like when they relocate the highways, right? Sometimes they have to go in a different spot and it takes businesses, it takes houses, all of those have to be relocated also. right? So not only are we taking something and getting rid of it, but we've got to relocate it. Right. So it spurs the economy in so many different ways. Some of these, and a lot of times, the good thing about Oklahoma City is we try and take the parts that are run down and rebuild it, right? We try and put that money back into it. So hopefully, I think that they will have that same intention, and that will spur it. That will spur everything around it. So it'll be a good thing for Oklahoma City. It really will.
And that's fair. But here's my question. I'm not challenging you. I just want to know because if you look around the Paycom Center and you look around that area, remember that I'm old enough to remember the Myriad. I
Hmm.
know there's the Myriad
Yep.
Gardens. I don't know. Is the Myriad still even a thing? I don't know. But convention. So anyway, like there's the property. Okay, so there's apartments, those downtown apartments that are
Hmm.
expensive, that are almost priced out of the market right now because you can go 3 to 5 miles away. But the property around there is, not it's
But I
lower
mean,
econ, I would say.
if you look at even around the Paycom Center, right? Like they put in that metal bird that's
Yeah.
over the highway, and they got the two parks and whatnot. So they're building a lot more. They're building a nicer city park there for, they've got a skate park, they've got, trails and stuff like that. So they are trying. They are definitely trying, and it has grown and it has changed significantly down there in that area. But they have taken away some of those rundown buildings that were just vacant, for many, many years. And that hurts the economy when areas start to depreciate so much that it just sits and vacant. That's where you're going to get your crime and stuff like that. So I really do see that this will spur it. I'm just curious of what they're going to put in it and who's going to go into it. Obviously Thunder's going to go there, but who's going to take over the Paycom? Like, what are we going to use that thing for now?
I guess smaller stuff. Like this new one is going to be so big, like you
Maybe
can
we'll
get your
fill it
Taylor
up.
Swift. Yeah, we'll just do live events there.
I'm down.
I'm a theater. I want, the theater on 23rd, Tower Theater, 23rd Street. That's played there. I did a Battle of the Bands, hosted that once, and then I did a stand-up show. I love that place. Jamie Lissow, very funny comedian, is going to be there soon. Shout out Jamie. But anyway, yeah, man, it's just interesting how that affects everything. And Oklahoma is so in flux. I hear we're growing, and it makes sense because as the more populated places decrease, this is a place you want to go, especially if you can work out some way to keep your gig. If you're a national working person, you got clients that you can work on the phone or via Zoom. Oklahoma is a kind of where you want to be. Interesting thought on like say the Plaza District.
Right.
Right. So because they torn up the Paseo, heartbreaking, man. When I was younger, the Paseo was the cool place. And now it's just, I don't know what happened. The Plaza, right? So Plaza District, very interesting to me because, like, okay, so it's for those of people who don't know, it's kind of what took over the hip culture that was downtown that got corporated out of downtown. And I think just financially, you couldn't afford to be in downtown, Bricktown area. They moved what, a mile up, to
Roughly.
Plaza. Yeah. So you've got really brand new homes, very expensive apartments on one street. I think it's 15th Street, right?
16.
16th.
Yeah.
But then 2 streets over, you have homes that look like they're falling down that are clearly. So what is that? Are those properties with the homes that look like they're falling down, are those going up in nature just because of where
Yes.
they're at, giving those poor people an opportunity to maybe sell or bank
Absolutely.
some cash?
So that whole neighborhood is increasing in value. But more and more people are going to the plaza. They're opening businesses, and almost every office, retail office space that's on the plaza is taken. Like, that's a good thing for our market. We have a mutual friend that has a business there. Um, it's one of those things that it's going to increase. More and more people are buying homes there and renovating. I've got a client that's renovating a house on 18th Street that's 2 streets over. So I think it is a good thing. I think the Plaza District is adding good value to our community, and they do a lot of marketing. They do a lot of marketing. They do a lot of events. I mean, they shut down the 2-3 blocks that it is when they do, for a Friday and Saturday night. You can't drive down it. You've got to park and walk. That's huge for the economy, and I think we need more of that in these little districts that we have all throughout Oklahoma City.
I agree, and I'm stoked, and I love that opinion on it. Where do you think Bricktown went wrong? Because I got to say, here's what happened. It's the frog in the boiling pot, right? So I was gone for better part of 2 years. I've lived here and then been gone for 5 years, 10 years, come back. And I was gone. My last run was about 2 years. And then I just got back in June. Couldn't wait to get to Bricktown. See, oh, what's new? What's cool? And you go down there and you're like, what happened? It feels like Frontier City off season. What's going on?
I think a lot of businesses have just honestly they couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford the rent and truly make a profit. I mean, you got a handful of businesses that are still there that have been there, right? I mean, you got like the piano bar. The piano bar has been there for a long, long time.
Yeah, Murphy's in it's killing it.
It does well. But I mean, you got other businesses that haven't, so I think one, it is part of marketing, right? Like it's no different than myself with AIM Real Estate and Racing Realtor. It's how do you market? How do you get the people that you want to be a part of your business, right? Well, the thing with Bricktown is they've let it go and now they're trying to recover, right? They let it go to a point that it's they've had to put more police there, right? They've had to put more security. Well, what family wants to go somewhere that is watching what they're having to do or watching their kids to the point that they're uncomfortable, right? That's not a good feeling. So I think that that's what Bricktown is trying to get back, is a safe environment. And that's where once they get it under control, the businesses will come back.
And if you're looking to sell, let's go with Gabe. He'll get your listing. We'll
Come
get
on,
you a great
let's
client.
go.
Let's go. Well, and that's the heartbreaking thing, is that it's fun. My wife had never been to Oklahoma City until I brought her here. We were
Right.
married, and then I was like, and we moved back. She's like, oh, this is fun because they have the little canal and they have the little bungee jump and golf, and there's a little taco place, and across is dueling pianos. And it seems like it's so fun. We had a friend come visit. He was on a tour, and he came through and visited, and it was like 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock when he got out of his show, and
Right.
we were able to get down to Bricktown. He was staying right there, a really nice hotel right there on the corner. And I was like, yeah, we're hungry. We didn't get to eat dinner. It was like, we got off work. You came right to your show. And he was like, yeah, I'm hungry too. I need a beer. And I was like, okay, we'll go to the Bricktown Brewery. They're known for their great pizza. No. And I had to look. We went to 3 different places, and I finally looked at one lady, and I was like, you mean to tell me it's Bricktown, and it's 10:30 p.m. in Bricktown, and there's no place we can go sit down and have a beer and food? She's like, no, you can get burgers over there, and then 2 blocks away, and then you can come here and have a beer. I'm like, okay, well, who's missing it? I don't understand. This is Bricktown. If it's Friday night at 10:30 p.m., it's not rocket science. And there was one bar open, and it was packed, but it was a party bar, and we weren't trying to do all that. But provide some decent food and some decent drinks at 10:30, 11 o'clock till, I would say, at least midnight in a place like Bricktown. You would make a killing because nobody else was doing it.
And I think that's a big part of it right now. Is, I mean, you only have a handful of businesses that are even willing to stay open because they have that safety factor, that they're worried about their people. They're worried about their employees. So if I was an owner, I'm saying, it's like, hey, I've got to shut it down, right? Because it's not worth the repercussions that could happen. Right.
I see that. Then you have the plaza. That's what I loved about the Paseo is, you had your restaurant, your tiny, cool little making local food restaurant right next to the bar. So, you didn't have both licenses or whatever, you could go to the bar and have the beer, and you literally could walk outside and there's a table, like New York or LA right there. And they're sharing tables, and you get your drink here and your food here. And I want them to bring that back. And that's one of the reasons I think Plaza is doing well, because you feel safe. You got Empire Slice House and so many of those places where you can get a slice and a brew at midnight and no one is tripping. Same thing with Midtown. Midtown seemed a little rolled up. I haven't been there recently. What's going on with Midtown, would you say?
It's the same. I think it's just, the right now the market, the district is Plaza. I mean, that's where the entertainment is going. I mean, you got the Paseo that's got a little bit of stuff. You got the 23rd district that's out there. But as far as a most solid one, I would say the Plaza for sure.
And the newest.
Yeah.
kind of came out of nowhere, man. It
Yep.
was what was cool about that is that shows when the community gets together and decides. I have some friends that are at the OKC Improv, and a lot of that was like arts grants that allowed them to open. And it's a small room, and it's about the size of the business that our friend is. Shout out, Plaza Nutrition, because
Yep.
I've done a couple comedy shows there. So shout out, and
Oh,
all the
Hayden.
boys.
Hayden.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Um, so it's not much bigger of a room than that, but they figured out a way to make that work. And then I remember Empire was one of the first ones, and then one of the breweries, and it was like maybe 5 or 6 places, but they worked so hard to bring in entertainment, comedy, music, DJs, and just create that vibe. And to me, for people trying to understand, it's like mini Austin. Like, imagine if you just took a slice of Austin, like out of a pie, and you put that somewhere, that would be that.
Oh
So
yeah, and that's just it. Is I mean, you have a little bit of everything. You got the tattoo place. You got some artists. Some artwork down there. You can go down and paint. I mean,
yeah,
you've got the sports bar. The side chick, I believe it is, that's there. You got there's a little theater there.
sidecar.
Sidecar. It's not side chick, sidecar. But yeah, I mean, that's just it. And you even got Up Down that's got the 1980s and 1990s arcade.
I love Up Down
Yep.
and Rad Bar, just
Yep.
like an old school kind of space to hang out. So yeah, I didn't even mean to get off on a plaza thing. I was just I found it interesting because clearly that area has been a economically depressed area for a very long time, and now you see, it changed. And I came back and it was more. You come back and like I said, Bricktown was less, Paseo was less, Midtown was less, Plaza is more, and I'm like, okay, so we're doing that somewhere around here. And Tulsa has such a hot scene that I want us to compete on that level, because
Right.
we always compete industry wise, and then we have the Thunder and we have the Sooners and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, gosh, we got off on a say. Where's the next place? Where's the place now? Like, if you had to guess, where's the next plaza where it's like, man, yeah, you could buy a building for pennies on the dollar that in 10 years is going to be, worth, 3, 4, 5 times what it is now.
I will tell you that I think the place that's blowing up right now is Yukon and Mustang area. I mean, you got businesses going up all over the place over there, right? I mean, you go from just say Southwest 15th to Northwest 10th and Mustang to Check Hall, you got businesses just popping up everywhere. And I think that's going to be a huge portion that is being developed right there by the turnpike on 15th and Mustang Road. That's gonna be huge.
Makes sense too, because of the concentration of population on the northwest side of Oklahoma City.
Mhm.
And it's just right there. But yeah, there are so many people. I live south. I live a little bit out of town because you got to. But yeah, no, northwest, from this side of I-35 and north of 240, if you will, or even 40, being generous to Edmond, that is just such a concentration, probably the biggest of the state, I would
Right.
say, is right in that area. Say for Tulsa, I think there's a heavier, but for Oklahoma City in the metro. So it makes sense that going out there as the people that were young, grew up in the apartments or smaller houses, want bigger houses
Mhm.
and that kind of thing, and they support. That's very cool,
Yeah,
man.
Yukon and Mustang is growing, and I believe I would say within the next 10 years, you're not gonna be able to tell it apart. I mean, it's just gonna be just like it's
Nice.
going from Oklahoma City to Norman. Like you don't even notice
No,
that
yeah.
you went through more, right? You're like, oh, I'm in Norman, right? Because there's no split. I mean, they've built so much that it just blends together now.
You're right. My wife, I was like, okay, so now we're in morning. She's like, you wouldn't know. I'm like, yeah, if you weren't born and raised, you would have no idea
None.
more to Norman. I keep going south of, like Dallas. You know
Yep.
what I mean? You're in Dallas proper, and it's another 2 hours, and you're in Oak Cliff or something, but you're still in
You
the
just don't,
Dallas.
and you're like, oh, it's still Dallas. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the same thing we say about Oklahoma City. I mean, you go to Oklahoma City and it's huge. Their boundary is massive, and then there's towns all in between. So
Edmond thinks at downtown Edmond to downtown Norman and all of that. And that's what, probably an hour 10 now with traffic and more.
every bit of it.
Because I-35 is a parking lot now. Do something about that. So I-35 is a parking lot all the time. 7,
Yes.
8, 9, 10 o'clock at night.
It doesn't matter.
It's the Beltway in Dallas now. It's like it's all, but with two stupid lanes and dumb people versus the Beltway where you have like 4 lanes of
Uh-huh.
people who know how to drive. So is that, do you know the turnpike they're putting in? Is that going through Oklahoma City at all? I know it's going through Norman a little bit.
I know it's going through Norman. I have actually sold some property where people are moving because
Yeah.
it's taking their spot, So I think it'll be a good thing. It's just gonna make a big loop all the way around,
Yay.
So
Is
it'll
charging us
tie.
money to drive around our
Of
city.
course, I drive in circles. I'm gonna be paying a lot of them toll fees.
That's right. And you cover a lot of ground. For people who don't
Yes,
know, you work all over the state.
doesn't matter. I cover Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Enid, Durant, Ardmore. I go literally everywhere. I'm based out of Oklahoma City, but I travel everywhere. It doesn't matter, and I enjoy that because of the fact that I feel like people need someone that they can trust, and they need someone that can help them from start to finish. No matter what it is, real estate's not just an easy transaction, right? You need to pick someone that you are comfortable with, that you can work with, and that you can talk to, and that those people are very honest with you about what's going on.
That's very cool. So and that's in making those relationships. I know something that's very important to you is working with other people who relationships are important to them too, and that it's
Correct.
its own currency. And I think that's important. I wanted to ask you, a lot of people, like, I know you just drove like what, 4 hours one way or 4 hours round trip, like 2 days ago,
Yeah,
yesterday,
Elk
something
City.
crazy.
Elk
Yeah.
City.
How far is that?
Every bit of an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back. And it's a straight shot of nothing. Nothing. There's nothing in between here and Elk City.
Giant windmills. So
Yeah, that's it.
so but that's the thing, is that you develop that relationship and you go to those places. I know you do work with a lot of vets and stuff. And to me, when I think of like an Elk City home, a place like that, Blanchard in that area, probably for me, because where my family is where I'm
Right.
looking. Because it's a little more affordable, of course, but it's your retirement spot. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, this is the spot that I'm going to be in the last 10 years. I'm working and living a life.
Yep.
And then after that, this is where I see kind of calling it. And maybe I, sell it in 25 years and get my RV or, whatever. But
Whatever.
this is my retirement style home, or the home that I'm going to retire and live here and fix it up and that kind of thing. Would you say that those places, you have those places available? And what would somebody, be willing to look for? What should they look for in a home like that?
I mean, really, it's once you find something, make sure you have it inspected, right? I don't care if it's brand new. It's still human made, right? We all make mistakes. It's not like they do it on purpose by any means. At least I hope they don't do it on purpose. But I've seen more issues with a new home than I have a used home. And why is that? Because once people live in the house, right, they figure out, oh, this is wrong or this doesn't work or whatever. And they fix those things, right? So it's easier to me to go into a used home that someone's cared for, right? Like you can tell, like when you walk into a house, you can tell if someone cares for their home or if they just let it go, right? So that's why it's so important when you are looking for a home that you have it inspected, no matter what it is, right? What I tell people, it's a peace of mind, right? This is a report that's you're going to be able to look at after you move into it and say, hey, okay, well, these are the things that maybe we could update at some point, right? Maybe it's an older home and the electric could possibly be updated. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's safe, but it needs to be updated, right? It's not up to code at this point, compared to when it was put in. So those are the things that report should be telling you, right? Here are the things that you need to look after. Here's the things that I would highly recommend to get done, right? So those are things that you focus on when you're buying a house. So the things that are high value as far as like a safety concern or electrical foundation, roofing, all those major ticket items.
Have you seen that affect appraisals before?
It does affect appraisals, big time. If you can clearly see that a roof needs to be done, that's a substantial amount that could be deducted. And the appraisers, they look at that stuff. If the paint is flaking, they'll call that out, right? Because you can't have flaking paint; it's not going to pass the appraisal inspection. So they'll require that it gets done, right? So it's got to be peeled and painted and all that good stuff. So it's that plays a huge factor, especially when you're listing a house. But even when you go to buy a house, right? Like you need to be aware of those major things when you're looking at it. Hopefully, you're looking and it's not just, oh, I walk into this house and I'm like, oh, I love it, right? Well, hopefully, someone's there to help you look for some of those things, right? Like I'm not a home inspector, but I can at least look around and be like, you got a crack in the wall, right? Like maybe we should look outside and see if maybe the bricks are separated, or maybe if your windows are separated, showing those gaps, right? That shows signs that your foundation is moving, your house is moving. And that's a big thing here in Oklahoma. So it's that type of stuff that you want to look for, that it can decrease the value of the home, but if you've taken care of it, it could increase it.
That's very cool. And you know a lot of home inspectors.
Yes, yes, I've got a few that I work with on a day-to-day basis, and some of them do work for me on some of the remodels that I do. So, and that's the thing about it, is pick someone that's been in the industry, that knows what they're doing, that can give you some value and teach you, right? It's not that they just read a book. Everybody can read a book, and I'm one of those people. I tell people, I have my GED. I've got my good enough diploma. Like that's what I got. And guess what? But I can help you because I've been in it. I've been in situations. I've had that experience to help you get through it, right? I didn't just read a book. Like I've learned, I've been in the trenches. I've been the guy that dug the dirt and, you know, put pipe in the ground and stuff like that. I've done everything. So you want someone with experience. In my opinion, you really do. You want someone that knows what they're doing. They just didn't read it out of a book.
Speaking of experience and knowing what you're doing, give me a horror story. I know you got to have a great story. You don't have to mention any names. It could be from a long time ago. It could be from last week. But give me like one of your best, like, oh my gosh, stories.
I have been in houses where there's literally paths, right? Like you walk in and you're like, I don't have a place to sit.
Like quarter style
Quarter style houses. I'm talking cockroaches, fecal matter. Like it doesn't. There was a house that took 3 30-yard dumpsters to get everything out and thrown away, and the house was less than 1,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
Just piled to the ceiling.
Stacked.
It had to be. Oh,
stacked,
mm.
stacked.
I
You couldn't use the kitchen at all.
I have a family member, or I have family members like that with the garage. Like you open the garage and things are, and it's nothing of value. I
Mm-mm.
mean,
Nope.
old crappy, bicycle tires, not even full bikes, old busted lawnmowers and just random.
It
stuff.
amazes me. It amazes me walking into some of these houses, and even just the ones that people just don't take care of, right? Like you walk in and there's holes in the ceiling, or there's stuff missing off the walls. Like you see the 2x4, you're like, you do know that animals can come through that, right? Like just saying.
I'm a big plumbing person because I learned a long time ago from a friend whose grandfather was a plumber. He's like, you understand, one plumbing problem leads to more. It doesn't ever fix itself. And if you have one plumbing problem, you don't fix it properly, and you get water backed up under your house and water going to the sewer line and all that, you're going to end up, with a ruined house. The cost to fix
water
the floors,
can
carpets,
damage so much. It's crazy.
top and bottom.
Top and bottom. It doesn't matter. Like people don't pay attention to plumbing, and then it's like once they do, it's so far gone. It costs you triple the amount, right? Because now you're replacing drywall, or you're replacing studs in the wall because they're covered in mold and it's just taken over. Like you've got to cut that stuff out and get rid of it, right? Like it damages so much, and people just don't pay attention. It's like, man, that's a huge factor. Huge factor.
Yeah, you're giving me that information.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, asking the questions to me and holding this conversation, because, otherwise I'll just be over here talking to the refrigerator. So
The camera, like, a lot of people, there are people who make $1 million just talking to a camera.
Yeah.
Complaining about
Man.
the president or the other president or the last president or the current one.
I can't do it.
I know, and they make so much money. I'm like, let me in, so I want that that Logan Paul money,
Right, right,
What's
right,
up? We're
right.
acting wacky. Now give us $1 million. Like, I hate you. I'm kidding. I don't hate them. Good for them, I say. If you're
Right.
not
Hey, if
hurting
you can make
people
it,
and
do it.
hustling, get it while
Not
you
not
can.
you know, no judgment.
So the worst house you said you've been in was like 30 three 30-yard dumpsters, you said,
Yes.
full in 1,000 square foot home. That is tell me a good story. What's like one of those good?
You're dead. You're just swimming down the creek for fun.
And that's going to work one of two ways. You either have lots of billable hours to get you guys to sign off, or a really good real estate agent.
Right. And so I think that that's a big part of it. But I enjoy it, because I want to see somebody start over and do it in a happy way, right? Like we've all made mistakes. No one's perfect. And that's part of even divorces is, you know what? You go your way, I go my way. Let's start over. Let's get out of this asset and move forward, right? Like don't make it worse, right? Don't make it worse because at the end of the day, you're only hurting yourself.
That's true.
Like you don't sell your house, guess what? You don't put the money in your pocket. Like, what are you arguing about? Right? Like, let's figure out how we can do this that makes both of you happy and get you into your own homes that are separated from one another.
Yeah, well, yeah. Hey, I know a lot of married people that would like to have their own homes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I help a lot of, newcomers too, but I think that that's one thing that it takes a special agent that handles that, right? Because that's more stress on top of what you're already doing.
Understands the work that
Right.
takes. Absolutely. Once again, and having a blue collar background, you get that a lot better than a lot of folks do, because when you have the money, the attorneys can handle it. And, somebody can literally sign a piece of paper and buy a house tomorrow or live in one of the 3 houses they already own, that kind of thing. But to wrap, getting close to the end here, couple things. One main one, say somebody's watching and they're inspired. You know what I mean? There's a guy out there and he's like, man, I am grinding. And, everybody says I got the gift of gab as a roofer, as a carpet and tile man. Everybody says I got the gift of gab, or I'm changing tires, man. I always thought I might like to get into real estate, but that's for fancy folks. And
Right.
you're clearly the race and real. You know from tires. You know how to put a tire on a car, man.
I'll get dirty. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, so how would somebody get into the business?
Really, it's there's many different ways. I think it just depends on you as a person, on how you work, right? Like even me and you was talking about that the other day. Like some people are that person that can call 100 people and get turned down 99 times, but the one time is a yes, right? I'm not that guy. I'm not dialing for dollars is what I call it. Like I didn't do it in the car business. I'm not doing it now. Um, I think it takes you as a person, if you know how you can build that relationship, or if you have that knowledge of learning how to go get that business from either leads or phone calls, whatever. It takes a certain person, right? There's so many different ways to make real estate work. You just got to find your niche, and mine's relationships.
Heck yeah. Is there a licensing, a school? Do you go to a real estate
I took
school?
my license online. I went through Charles Barnes Real Estate, did it online, started, and it took off for me. I was blessed. I'm still blessed.
Is it different in different states?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Every state is different. Every state has different rules. So you got to definitely check into your state to see what is required. But Oklahoma, you can take it online and
Be in
you
the
go.
next. Yeah, there you go. Now I'm motivated. I can flip a house. I'm kidding.
Come on, let's go.
And that's the funny, much like everything, including acting and what you may consider to be the most glamorous jobs. The jobs, I mean, there are so many cool TV real estate jobs. There's 100. If you're trying to do actual research on real estate, I don't recommend going to like TV, because like there are so many Shaws of Sunset, flip this house, Good Bones, flipping
Stop
these
it.
bones, my scary house. You know what I mean? My my crazy house addiction.
Yeah, all those are paid for. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
that's set up. Not happening. Not happening.
There's this one me and my wife were just checking out, and this guy was using it was called something like never thought of before, and he was using containers. He basically was using shipping containers and turning them into saunas and playrooms and all this. And she's like, this is really cool, but he's only using these things. And then at the end, it's sponsored by so-and-so container company. It's like, oh, so it's just a big commercial for their thing. They found a guy that'll do plants and,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. So, so if basically, if you're wanting to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on Facebook, Racing Realtor Gabe. Instagram, same thing, Racing Realtor Gabe. Twitch, same thing, Racing Realtor Gabe. Pretty much all the platforms. You can just type in Racing Realtor Gabe and you'll find me. So, and also my website is aimrealestateokc.com. It's part of what I do pretty much every day.